Welcome to So What's It Actuary About? I'm your host, Margie Mchechny, and I, along with my wide array of guests, hope to help you better understand and weather the wonderful world of actuarial science. Hello and welcome to today's episode. I am joined by Lusani, who is my boss currently, but the head of actuarial science at UCT and the past president of the Actuarial Society of South Africa. So thank you so much for being with us.
It is a pleasure to be here. And no, I'm not your boss.
You are. But standard question, tell us a bit about your actuarial journey and sort of the pathway you took to becoming an actuary.
It's an interesting one. I remember it might have been about 1997, where a classmate of mine, his name, well, I won't say his name, but he mentioned that, no, he's not going to be a doctor. He's going to be an actuary. I was like, is that something better? What is it? So from then on, we did some research on that. My mom, who was involved in education, was a teacher, and so she did even a lot more research than I did. It still didn't really interest me. So the kind of things that I was interested in, I loved history.
Okay.
So I was good. I was generally a good student. So options were quite open to. But towards matric, I didn't do biology or life sciences. So that door to medicine was closed. So I knew that it's going to be something either in business or whatever else. So at the end or during matric, I actually decided to go to Stellenbosch University to study a BA in that.
Oh, really? Okay, interesting.
Actually, my plan going to the University of Stellenbosch. Actuarial science was a second option in going there. So I was actually admitted to do a BA at the University of Stellenbosch. My parents were not very pleased with that.
Okay.
The one reason being that when we were doing our research, we came to understand that there are bursaries that are offered by the likes of Old Mutual, Sanlam, etc.
Okay.
And that, for my parents, was a lot more attractive.
Yeah.
And also the requirements, if you looked at the requirements, you need an 80 for maths and so on. So
Yeah.
it looked like something that would fully utilize the talent that I had. So then when I go to the University of Stellenbosch, I was not convinced by the reasons that my parents gave. So they came with me all the way. We drove down to Stellenbosch in an old crusader. But then we did all the psychometric assessments and I had a discussion with an industrial psychologist who was working for one of the psychology section there at the University of Stellenbosch. And in that conversation, he asked me, what do I really want to get out of my studies and so on. I mentioned all my reasons, being for a couple of them. And he listened to me quite carefully. And at the end, he said, he recommends that I study actuarial science. So then I said, okay, I think if we've done it like this, we've assessed this professionally, okay, I'm gonna do that. Let me now go figure out exactly what it is, and then I'm gonna put my mind to it. And so that's when I went for registration. That's when I chose actuarial.
And tell me, when you were doing actuarial science, was it what you expected?
Well, my expectations, I didn't have much in the way of expectations. I didn't fully understand what it was and what it entailed. So it remained a curiosity. From it was anything that I got was like, okay, let's understand this, and it was fairly tough. Actually, I think the first year I did enjoy some of the more general commercial subjects that in our first year.
Like
Ecos was probably my favorite in first year. And the others were really, I needed to survive them, I think. Going into second year and I mean third year was probably the toughest.
Yeah,
Just
feel like you're fighting all day.
all that and I was scraping through it. But I always managed to do something exceptional. So yes, first year I managed to be to come like and there was on the vice rector something.
Okay.
and then, third year, it was just getting 50s. But I would get an exemption. For instance, there would be one subject. We did our models. I think it was in second.
Yes.
And I got an exemption for that. I only scraped through the fin mat. And then in third year, we did our fin equals back then.
Yes.
In third year. And I got an exemption for that. And that was just, none of my friends expected that. So I've always had that ability to punch above my weight.
Got the big match temperament.
Yeah, I've got that. I mean, so it doesn't always come through, but it is something. It's a character. It's an artifact. So that's being something special. And it was recognized by the university.
Okay.
That tenacity and so on, and I think it was in 2005 that I was given this award for succeeding against odds in this system. So yeah, that's something that
It's incredible. And so speak to me about post your studies, what was your career trajectory? I know that obviously you moved into the public interest space, but what was sort of your pathway to getting there? And then also, can you unpack what a public interest actuary is? Because I don't think a lot of people even know that exists.
Yeah, so I'm the first in the world. Look, it was a very traditional path. So I had a bursary from Sanlam. From about my second year, so I had about 4 years to work back. So I went there and I studied off in there's a section they call value section where they pull off policies from the old system they have, and then you do some head calculations there using Excel and so on. And then you go into the testing environment where again they're testing their systems, testing the values of their policies and so on. And then after that, moved into valuations, the group risk valuations. That's where I spent about 2 years. And that's probably the one job I enjoyed the most.
Okay.
At Sanlam. And what I enjoyed about the job was the frequency of the meetings with senior actuaries.
Okay. So it's that exposure to the business.
Yeah, every month, you do your rounds and then you're helping to prepare the management accounts, all that. So you almost seem not end to end, but you're doing the rounds and then you're helping to collate together the management account. Your management accountant is putting them together, but you feed in with those figures, and then you go and present that to the actuary.
And you talk about the fluctuations and those sort of things.
I thoroughly enjoyed that. I thoroughly enjoyed sitting there and presenting those. I think I was quite bad at it initially. But when I looked at my rating, so I took my rating very seriously, my appraisal. The one aspect that always sort of where I did better was the way I handled myself in the meetings.
Okay.
Even though sometimes the things that I had to deal with were I was not so confident in some of them, but just the way I would answer the questions and so on, and that I did relatively well in that.
Can I just pause there and ask you? I mean, like, it's so interesting you bring that up. And one of the things I wanted to talk about today was professionalism, and what professionalism means as an actuary. And I think you're touching on it there in the way that you're conducting yourself, and given your experience and what you've spoken to now. Can you just touch on what professionalism is for an actuary, and then we'll sort of go back to the pathway?
So professionalism involves quite a lot because aspects of communication. And just the way you write your emails, the way you do your presentations, and just the way you work with colleagues and so on, and just your knowledge around business aspects. You can say it's the softer side of things, but it is the side that people interact with. So therefore, very critical. And I must say, when I went into the workplace, I was not very good at this. My email writing skills were not great.
Yeah, but
there wasn't. I mean, I had done some of the communication courses at university, but I couldn't actually translate that fully into the workplace. So I had to learn. My boss had to take me aside. I had a boss, Christian Reddy, and Arnold Mulder, and they really had spent a lot of time showing me how to write a memo, how to plan. And I struggled with the things. The sort of things that maybe one takes for granted that I really struggled with. And those are some of the things that I use a lot more in
especially now because you're in a management position, right? So you do that increasingly.
Yes, I do a lot of that. Do a lot of presentations and so on. But it was a struggle for me actually to actually translate information and then communicate it in a way that is consumable. Those are some of the things that I do enjoy the most. But I must say it was quite a learning curve. I mean, one of the subjects that I struggled a lot with is actually the modeling and communications.
Yes, that documentation subject.
I failed that subject repeatedly.
Yeah. That's not like that full day modeling exercise where you have to document.
I only passed that on my 6th attempt.
Goodness, really?
Really struggled with that. There's clearly something in my own orientation that did not prepare me well for that kind of thing. It's perhaps easier for me to do algebra or to do an essay, like your type of high order level sort of thinking subject were not as difficult for me. I didn't struggle much with my fellowship. I didn't struggle much with ARM, the risk management. I didn't struggle with those, and I see a lot of students struggle with that. I'm like, what you?
How is this different proficiencies?
It's just maybe different parts of my brain that are more developed than others. But having to actually present things in a certain way, that I found it to be a struggle. Like structuring a spreadsheet, that was not very natural for me actually to do. So I had to do a lot. I had to work a lot to eventually pass that subject. So those were sort of things that are quite humbling. But I must say I benefited extremely from what the profession insists on in terms of the kind of skills you need to have. I benefited tremendously from that, and I do find that I used those things that I struggled with. I do find that I actually use them a lot. And I was listening to a soccer player yesterday saying that he's actually naturally left-footed, but because he trained his right leg so much, he's now more proficient on his right.
It's developing things that aren't necessarily your natural proficiencies. I think with professionalism, one thing that I found really helpful, and I think it links to what you're saying, that doing those courses and sort of the emphasis in becoming an actuary on professionalism is it's sort of like you have to be competent, you have to communicate, and you have to be accountable. And that for me was so helpful because professionalism just seems like, dress nicely and then you're there, and it's actually, there's so much to it.
But it's a lot more. So it's very important. It's very beneficial. And I think even a lot of my input into the profession are on more the professionalism side, on the way of doing things there, than necessarily the content of some of the things. So it's very important. From Sandom, I went on to med school. Because I had done my fellowship, or was doing my fellowship in health.
And why health?
When I was at university, because I stayed at the university for quite a number of years, I got my degree after 3 years. Yes, my BCom degree, did honors over 2 years. So I could redo some of those subjects I didn't get exemption for. I could repeat them. So I got my honors around 2005. And then I was in Prof. Slattery said I should stay on for another year. So it's 2006, I stayed for another year to masters, but I never did the research, so I won't get it. And a year later, almost 15 years later.
We'll talk to that.
But yes, I did the courses. I did the life insurance subject, and then I did the fellowship because it was being offered at university. By head on Claude Shibani.
Oh, fantastic!
So I was very privileged. I still look back at that and said I was extremely privileged to have been one of 2 or 3 students, and there were times when I was the only student because the other student was working. I couldn't be there, and it's me, and I'm having this actuary.
Like 1 hours. That's unbelievable.
I remember thinking about it, sitting there like I am seriously privileged. So people talk about previously disadvantaged, and so I'm super advantaged. So that's why I got into health.
So you did life and health as your F100s, or STs as they were then, and then you did your fellowship in healthcare.
Correct. And I mean I basically only looked at the healthcare ST after I had done a course in fellowship.
Oh, that's really
Before,
cool.